Jafar and Fox, let's talk business. And let's turn it up a notch. It's your time to shine with Jafar and Fox. It's all coming together. Just keep your eyes on God and tune in. And let's talk with Jafar and Fox. Hey, Jafar and Fox. Jafar and Fox.
Hello, hello, hello. God bless you, and welcome to the Jafar Fox Show. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Say hello as you are coming in. Say hello, and thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining and being here. I am so excited that you are here with me. I am so excited. Say hello, say hello. Welcome, everyone. If you're here live or on the replay, I want to take a moment to create a space for this community intentionally. This isn't just a show you watch. This is a space where we think more deeply, reflect honestly, and grow together through psychological insight and real life experiences. So wherever you're joining from, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, I want you to feel welcome here. And take a moment and say hello in the comments. Let me know where you're watching from and share with three people. And if this is something that resonates with you during tonight's conversation, share your thoughts, because your presence matters here. So say hello in the comments and let me know that you're joining me. I'm so excited that you are here. Welcome to my LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Welcome, 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 and thank you so much. Hello. Thank you so much for joining and being a part. If you would share, let others know that the Jafar Fox Show is on. I am so excited and I appreciate you tuning in. So thank you so much for joining me. If you're joining live on Facebook, thank you as well. And this space is built for thoughtful professionals, leaders, and individuals navigating alignment, identity shifts, and the discipline of becoming who you truly are. You want to become who you truly are. And as this community continues to grow, I want you to know something. You don't have to have everything figured out to be here. You must be willing to think, to reflect, and to stay open to growth. And so tonight's conversation is a continuation of our journey together, moving from alignment into boundaries and understanding the discipline of not over-explaining yourself. So settle in, stay present, and fully engage in the conversation. Think deeper, align fully, lead differently. So let's go ahead and dive in. Let's begin. Tonight's conversation is a natural continuation, as I said, from episode 3, where we explored why clarity doesn't bring relief. And now we'll move into what often comes next after alignment. And after alignment, something important begins to happen. You start forming boundaries. Not always loud or dramatic boundaries, but internal ones. You began to recognize what you no longer need to justify, explain, or negotiate about yourself. And that leads us to tonight's topic, which is the discipline of not over-explaining yourself. So tonight's topic is the discipline of not over-explaining yourself. Before we go deeper, let me ask you this. Have you ever noticed yourself explaining something longer than necessary? Not because you lack clarity, but because you want it to be fully understood. If that resonates with you, say yes in the comments. If you've ever noticed yourself explaining something longer than necessary, not because you lack clarity, but because you want it to be fully understood, put yes in the comments. And as you're joining in, say hello, and let me know that you're here and share with at least 3 people. I am so excited that you're joining me. So welcome to my LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube audience. Thank you so much for being a part of the Jafora Fox Show. Share with others. And alignment changes your relationship with community. Alignment, it changes the relationship with communication, because when you are in alignment, you communicate differently. You may notice yourself speaking differently. You have shorter responses, more pauses, less urgency to clarify every detail. Not because you don't care, but because you are no longer trying to convince others of something you have already resolved within yourself. And boundaries are not only about what you say no to, they are about what you no longer feel obligated to explain. So let me ask you something. Where in your life are you forming boundaries, but still feel the urge to justify them? Is it at work, leadership, family, or all of that? You form those boundaries, but you still feel that urge to justify yourself. So engage in the comments. Put that information in the comments. I want to hear from you. If you feel free to share, if you would, like to. You don't have to overshare, but identify the area you're referring to. So hello. Thank you for joining in. Many people explain. They're oversharing because they're seeking understanding. But beneath that is often more profound need for validation. You're wanting to be validated, so you keep sharing. You want to be understood, so you keep sharing. And we want people to see our intentions. We want to avoid being misunderstood. We want emotional safety, so we add more context, more reasoning, more justification. But over-explaining can signal internal pressure rather than true clarity. And sometimes the more we explain, the more we disconnect from our own authority. Be honest with yourself for a moment. When you over-explain, are you seeking understanding or approval? So you can drop one word in the comments, understanding or approval, when you are in a space of over-explaining. And there is a difference in wanting to provide understanding, or you're doing it for approval. And over-explaining is often a stress response. When discomfort rises, the nervous system looks for ways to regain control. And so talking more can feel like control, but alignment teaches a different discipline, allowing silence, allowing simplicity, and trusting that clarity does not require excessive explanation. And so thank you so much for joining in and for putting the comments in the chat. So thank you to Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thank you. Because we are in a space where sometimes you over-explain, and it's not necessary to over-explain. And because the choices are, understanding or approval. And in either one, but there is a difference, and you don't want to have to prove anything to anyone. And when you're in alignment, everybody won't understand the space that you're in. And your alignment is with what God is calling for you and how you're supposed to be doing what it is that you need to do. And so everyone won't understand what it is that God is doing in your life or what you should be doing. And so we have some comments here on the screen. Elder Justine said understanding. First Lady Dove said approval. And Stephanie said, at work, I stopped because it was stressing me out. I have faith to believe I no longer need valid or seek approval from others who really don't care. And that is so true. When you're in alignment, you will see that you don't need validation. You're not seeking approval from others, because that is true, Stephanie. They really don't care. And it does not need to. You don't need to do that. And so pay attention to this. Do you notice you talk more when you feel tension rise? When silence feels uncomfortable, do you still try to fill it with other things? So I just wanted you to reflect on that self-awareness, because that is a part of in leadership, whether it's family, church, relationships, work, wherever it is that you're at, that sometimes silence speaks for itself. And we want to fill in that silence, that uncomfortableness with words and things. And you can just let the silence be where it needs to be. Silence definitely is golden. So sometimes we should just be silent. And we don't have to be in a space of over-explaining and wanting approval from others, wanting to get understanding when, most of the time people are already in a space to misunderstand you. They really don't have any intentions on understanding the space that you're in, especially if it's not going to benefit them. So they don't want to understand. And then you'll find yourself continuously feeling like you're being misunderstood. And that's a whole nother subject. And so tonight's topic, we're talking about the discipline of not over-explaining yourself and what that looks like. Leadership presence is often quieter than people expect. It's not about saying more. It's about being grounded enough to say what needs to be said and then allowing it to stand. So once you say what needs to be said, then you don't have to say anymore. So you have to have a space of quiet confidence. Because when you have quiet confidence, it communicates, I trust my decision, I trust my direction, and I trust myself enough not to over-explain. And so I want to make sure that on tonight that you're kind of, taking this in. I thank you all so much for your comments and engagement and joining in. And I want you to leave the show tonight knowing that you trust yourself enough not to over-explain. Yes, that quiet confidence. And if you're joining from LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, welcome to the Jafora Fox Show. Thank you so much for your presence. Thank you so much for being here and joining. Share with 3 people. Share, because sharing is caring. And I thank you so much for tuning in. And when you stop over-explaining, people often experience you as more anchored, clearer, and more self-led. And you're probably thinking not. But you are really in that space of being anchored, being grounded, being sure about what it is, that you are saying and what you're not saying. And so that you can have that quiet confidence to just say less, to be quiet, to be calm, And so I want to ask, what would change in your professional life, in your personal life, if you trusted your clarity enough to say less? Would your presence shift? Would people respond differently? I want you to think about that. If you're saying less, and I want you to practice that, practice saying less. And it's a discipline. And so with the discipline, that means that it's something that we have to work at. That's something that you have to continue to practice at that. And the more you do it, the more you'll get better at it, because it is not a space, that silence, that time where you feel like, okay, you need to add something else to the conversation. And it's that time of that pause and that silence. As I talked about, that quiet confidence in knowing it's like, I said what I said, and that's it. No more. And so you want to have that quiet confidence. So I want you to think differently about and pay attention to it when you are having conversations, of how you are allowing that quiet confidence, how you are allowing yourself to just kind of pause and, slowly, and the quietness in your spirit and the calmness that you have in your voice. And it's that the spirit, and it'll just make it, you'll be so much better off in communicating when you can communicate from a space of just being quiet and calm and just saying what you have to say without having to over explain yourself, because that's where the confidence come in, because you're not over explaining yourself. And so I see we have comments here. It says, I agree that silence can be loud. Learning to sit in silence and let it be is powerful. It really is. It really is. And Althea says, I'm learning to be silent more. It really is powerful. It will save you a lot of energy within yourself. It'll keep your nervous system calm. And I talked about that earlier, about the nervous system. There's a difference, and you'll know when your nervous system is calm, because you won't approach things in that way. So here we have Stephanie said, one person continued to get angry with me more when I stopped explaining. I trust my decision was best for me. I have less stress and less anxiety. Absolutely. This is really a great skill to have, a great discipline. Coach Carey says, I trust myself. It is really a great discipline to have. When you can trust what you're saying, you're confident in what you're saying in a quiet way, you're anchored, you're more grounded, your spirit is calmer, and silence is powerful. And it'll help in communicating. And I'm not talking about silence in a way where you are ignoring the person. We're not saying about being rude. We don't want to be rude. And when we communicate with each other, we can say things in a calm way with silence, and not using fillers and trying to over-explain, and still from your space, yourself, your heart, you're knowing that you're not trying to be rude. You're just wanting to stay in a place of quiet confidence, not in a space of over-explaining, not in a space of just trying to make a person understand and approve you in what you're saying and your thoughts. Stephanie says, I like that, more anchored. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, Deacon, for joining in. Thank you. And thank you, all of you all, for joining in. I think we all need this lesson in life, especially relationships. Absolutely. I agree with you, Joseph. Thank you so much, nephew, for tuning in. That is so true. It is very helpful in relationships when we can just kind of not over explain, take a place to be silent and to pause, to be quiet and have that quiet confidence in what you're saying. And when you're on your job, whatever situation where it requires communication and you need to explain. There was a time that silence made me feel uncomfortable, but as I have matured, I truly have learned to appreciate silence. Absolutely. I totally agree. It is a skill that if you can learn it early, you'll definitely be better off. But it's, as I know, it's not when you get it, it's that you get it. And so I can totally agree with that. As I've matured, that I have learned that silence, that uncomfortableness in silence. And so it is allowing a person to also sit in their own emotion, sit in their own space. And so we try to over-explain sometimes to feel that cushion of somebody else, of how that may, make them feel. But, as I said before, you want to make sure that you're not communicating from a place of being rude or anything like that, or condescending. You want to come from a place of just being sincere in your heart, but just wanting to utilize the discipline of effective communication. And Stephanie says it actually changed the energy in the room because it was calmer. That is so true, Stephanie. It will definitely change the energy in the room. And if you continue to do that, as you continue to practice this discipline, it'll really allow you to communicate so much better. Yes, I have another prophetess. Cherie said, hello, prophetess. Thank you so much for joining in. I hear God more clearly when I'm quiet. I agree. Absolutely. Absolutely. You can definitely hear God more when you're quiet. And after alignment comes discipline. And so when you're in alignment, you have to come to a place of discipline, and the discipline to hold boundaries, the discipline to trust your clarity, and the discipline to allow your presence, not your explanations, to communicate who you are. And so you have to operate, in a place of discipline. And it does take discipline to kind of stay on this. If you're, first starting out, learning to mature in the way you communicate, it can feel kind of awkward because you're used to filling in, over-explaining, overdoing, over-giving, all those over-sharing, and that is not going to work. You're trying to get people in communication to understand what it is that you're trying to say. And that's not necessary when you're wanting to try to communicate effectively. And so before we close, I want to leave you with this. Where are you ready to practice the discipline of saying less and trusting more? Not withdrawing, not shutting down, not isolating yourself, but standing grounded without over-explaining. And so if that resonated with you, I want you to put in this chat, think, align, lead. So put that in the chat for me if that resonated with you in a space where you're in a season of not over-explaining. You're wanting to stand grounded in what you're saying. You're not trying to shut down, because this is about communication. Communication means that we have to speak. We have to communicate. We have to talk, not withdrawing in silence, being in a space of avoidance. But it's just in a space of not over-explaining. Not trying to allow the approval of someone in what they're saying and what it is that you should be saying or that they may want you to say. And so, yes, in the comments, put think, align, lead. If that resonates with you about being in the space of not over-explaining, about standing grounded without that. And so if this conversation tonight has resonated with you, put think, align, lead in the comments. And again, thank you so much for being here. Thank you to LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube audience for joining me on tonight, whether you're joining live or on the replay. I appreciate your presence. I thank you for tuning in, and I'm excited. And so I want you to stay aligned, take care of yourself, and I'll see you next time at the Jafora Fox Show, and have a good night. And so God bless you. I love you. God loves you. And again, don't forget to share this Jafora Fox Show with someone else. This amazing, awesome topic that we have tonight, which was the discipline of not over-explaining yourself. And so again, thank you so much for tuning in. And you have an amazing, amazing night. God bless.
Jafora Fox, let's talk business. And let's turn it up a notch. It's your time to shine with Jafora Fox. It's all coming together, just get